Hello and welcome to this brand new edition of Global Lens on News9 Live with me, Neha Khanna. Let's begin the show with an update from India's capital. The Delhi police have said they received a call this evening about an alleged blast behind the Israeli embassy located in the Chanakyapuri area, the diplomatic neighborhood in New Delhi. The alleged blast was reported to the authorities on a phone call by an unidentified caller who actually placed the call to the Delhi Fire Service. The Israeli embassy in New Delhi has told News9 Live, and I quote, "We can confirm that around 5:08 p.m. there was a blast at close proximity to the embassy. The Delhi police and the security team are still investigating this situation." However, the Delhi police say they have found nothing at the spot. Now, the caller claimed that an explosion did take place on an empty plot behind the Israeli embassy. Subsequently, a special cell team of the police along with a bomb disposal squad reached the spot. Nothing suspicious was found at the location, as we said, according to the Delhi police. Officials have combed the entire area. The identity of the caller is currently under investigation. The Delhi police say they are still investigating the matter, but they haven't found anything suspicious yet. But as I said, the Israeli embassy has a different version. They say that there was indeed a blast in close proximity to the Israeli embassy in New Delhi at 5:08 this evening. This is a developing story, so we'll really have to wait for more details to emerge to understand exactly what happened.
तेजू छेत्री मेरे साथ है जो पास में सिक्योरिटी गार्ड का। क्या आवाज सुनी थी आपने?
बस हमने को ऐसा लगा कि कुछ टायर फट गया होगा या कुछ भी हो, ऐसे आवाज आया था।
जब आवाज सुन के बाहर निकले तो क्या पाया?
हमने देखा कुछ भी नहीं था, लेकिन ऊपर उस पेड़ के ऊपर थोड़ा धुआं जा रहा था। धुआं सिर्फ देखा था हमने, कोई कुछ भी हो।
एक ही बार धमाके की आवाज?
एक ही बार।
पुलिस ने आपसे आके पूछताछ की?
हाँ, पूछताछ की। हमने सबको बता दिया, हमने ये देखा जो सुना हमने बता दिया सबको।
कुछ पाया गया अभी, कुछ पता लगा अभी तक?
ये हम पता नहीं, हम अपने ड्यूटी हमारा अंदर है, ड्यूटी बाहर नहीं, हम बाहर नहीं है।
आपको क्या लगता है किस चीज की आवाज हो सकती है?
अभी हम बता नहीं सकते किस की आवाज है, क्या है ना।
लेकिन तेज आवाज थी?
आवाज तेज था।
तो बिल्कुल ये है चेदू छेत्री, जो कि यहाँ पर हिंदी भवन में सिक्योरिटी गार्ड का काम करते हैं, और उन्होंने जो है आवाज सुनी थी, और आवाज सुनने के बाद जो है इन्होंने बाहर निकल के देखा तो उनका पेड़ की तरफ से धुआं निकल रहा था।
Okay, for more on this developing story, let's now go across to my colleague Aditya Raj Kaul, who joins us live on Global Lens tonight. Aditya, the picture is very unclear at the moment. The initial reports that we received suggested that a phone call had gone to the Delhi Fire Service first and through them to the Delhi police, alleging that there had been a blast near the Israeli embassy here in the national capital. Now, what's happened in the last few minutes is that the Delhi police say that while they reached the spot with a bomb disposal squad, they found nothing suspicious. But the Israeli embassy in New Delhi is saying, we can confirm that there was a blast in close proximity to the embassy at 5:08 p.m. this evening. What more can you share with us at this point in time?
Well, the Israeli embassy has indeed confirmed that at 5:08 p.m., that is a little after 5 p.m. this evening, there was a blast that was reported very close to the Israeli embassy in the national capital. Immediately they informed the Delhi police and the Delhi, emergency services. Immediately we had the Delhi police unit, the bomb disposal squad, as well as other security agencies, including the NIA, the NSG units, etc., on the spot. All of them, including the forensic units, have been investigating since last couple of hours as to what the nature of the blast really is. They have sanitized the entire location. They've also spoken to a lot of eyewitnesses in the area. But as of now, Delhi police sources confirmed that not a shred of evidence of any blast has been reported or any evidence has been seen as of now. So there is a contradiction between what Israeli embassy and the security forces are saying. But the security agencies are going by facts right now. They've collected a lot of materials from that area, but there is no blast-like material or any chemical or any residue of a blast that has been found at that area. I heard one of the witnesses say that it could have been a tire blast. He wasn't sure, but there was some smoke in the air near the tree in that area. So was there some kind of a tire blast or some other kind of a technical blast that took place that led to such kind of a rumor mongering? One will have to investigate. So Delhi Police special cell units have also arrived on the scene right now. There's a massive security presence. We have confirmation from the Israeli embassy that their security team is in touch with the MHA and the Delhi police as well to investigate what really happened. But as of now, this has made the global headlines really at a time when the Israel-Hamas war continues in Gaza. The security in New Delhi of the Israeli embassy and the Israeli ambassador's residence both have been beefed up in the last 2.5 months ever since the war really began and the seventh terror attack that actually took place in southern Israel. So we'll be keeping a very close watch here on News9 Live. But as of now, it seems that Delhi police has hit a dead end on this blast, even as the Israeli diplomats claim that it was indeed a blast. But there is no evidence or any residue material of any kind of a blast, chemical or ammonium nitrate or anything that has been found in that area.
Well, as you said, Aditya, the matter is under investigation. We'll have to wait for more details to emerge. But let me ask you this. As you mentioned, as we're all aware, that in the aftermath of the horrific terror attacks that took place in Israel on the 7th of October, security for Israeli embassies and consulates around the world were beefed up, and the Israeli embassy here in New Delhi was no different. As you mentioned, security was stepped up for Israel's ambassador to India as well. But if I may ask you this, in the last 2.5 months, was there at any point in time a perceived threat to the Israeli embassy, anybody in the Israeli staff in New Delhi or anywhere else in India in the aftermath of the Hamas attacks?
Well, there was no direct threat as of now, but ever since the terror attacks in southern Israel, the security was beefed up, as I said, both in Israeli embassy and the Israel ambassador's residence. But what I can also tell you is that apart from global security presence being beefed up in all the Israeli missions globally, there are some missions that have an increased perception of security threat. I think New Delhi is one of them, and that's why the security was multifold in that area. In the last 2.5 months, I have visited the Israel embassy and the Israel ambassador's residence several times, more than a dozen times. And I can tell you that there is massive security and multiple layers of security checks that you have to actually go through. And Delhi police had also beefed up both the physical presence in that area and technical, kind of security that is provided to them. Apart from that, the Israelis themselves have beefed up security both within the embassy premises and the ambassador's residence. So I think the security was very much tight in that area. This is also an area that we are talking about, which is behind the Israeli embassy, where the blast has been reported as of now. So Delhi police hasn't found any kind of evidence as yet. But I can tell you that more than a decade ago, there was a magnetic blast that had taken place in one of the diplomats' cars, and there were injuries reported in that. And there was a clear Iranian hand back then. So as of now, I'm sure that the Israelis will cooperate with the Delhi police and the investigative agencies, and they'll have to go through multiple angles of whether this was some kind of a message that was being sent out to the Israelis sitting in New Delhi. Because certainly the New Delhi mission of the Israel is certainly one of the missions that has increased security threat.
All right, Aditya, thanks very much for getting us those details. This is, of course, a story we'll continue to track very closely here on Global Lens. In the meantime, more reactions have come in from outside the Israeli embassy here in the national capital. Let's listen in.
हमारे से पहले एक गाड़ी और आ रखी थी, सीनियर आ गए थे हमारे, उन्होंने ही देखा है। हमें मैसेज मिला है वापस जाने का। वैसे कुछ मिला नहीं मिला? नहीं हमें कुछ नहीं मिला सर। हम इसके दूसरी साइड चले गए थे। जब आपने देखा जब कुछ मिला था? नहीं, कुछ नहीं मिला।
The following content may contain visuals that are disturbing, graphic, or sensitive in nature. Viewer discretion is advised. This material is intended for mature audiences and may not be suitable for all viewers. Please exercise caution while watching, and if you find such content distressing, we recommend discontinuing viewing. This disclaimer is provided to ensure awareness and to prioritize viewer well-being.
All right, let's now move on to our main focus on global lens, which continues to be on the ongoing Israel-Hamas war in Gaza. Israel's war in Gaza will be a long fight and is far from ending. That's what Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has said after his return from the war zone on Monday, where he met with Israeli soldiers. This was his second visit to the Gaza Strip since the 7th of October. Netanyahu told his Likud party it will be a long fight and it's not close to ending. We need patience, cohesion, unity and adherence to the mission. We don't stop, we keep fighting and we deepen the fighting in the coming days. That's what he said. As Netanyahu announced further intensification of the military operations, the Hamas-controlled health ministry has said that at least 250 people were killed and 500 others injured in just the last 24 hours in central Gaza. More than 20,000 Palestinians have been killed since the conflict began in early October. The World Health Organization has said its officials visited hospitals in Gaza again, where they say they heard harrowing accounts of human suffering. Now, during a special session of parliament, Netanyahu was interrupted by shouts from family members of hostages who are still being held in Gaza. They held posters and signs displaying photos and names of their loved ones. A close confidant of Netanyahu, meanwhile, is expected to meet with Biden administration officials today. Ron Dermer, a member of Israel's war cabinet who previously served as ambassador to the United States, is expected to meet with officials from the White House and the State Department to discuss the next phase of the war. The US has repeatedly stated in recent days that it expects Israel to move away from the high-intensity war that it has waged for nearly 3 months in Gaza and change its strategy towards more precision targets and surgical operations in an attempt to save civilian lives. Meanwhile, Egypt has proposed a 3-phase plan to end the war between Israel and Hamas. However, it's not clear if there are any takers for this plan. Reports suggest that in the first phase of the plan, Israel would be expected to pause its military operations for 1 to 2 weeks for Hamas to release 40 hostages, including women and the elderly. The second phase includes an agreement of the exchange of bodies of Hamas operatives held by Israel for the bodies of Israeli hostages held by Hamas. The third phase of the plan includes an all-for-all deal, meaning Israel would return 6,000 Palestinian prisoners in its jails for the remaining Israeli hostages, including soldiers who continue to be in Hamas captivity. The third phase also includes, as per this proposed plan, the end of the war with Israel pulling out from Gaza and the establishment of a technocratic government in Gaza which will not be affiliated with Hamas and will get the support of the United States, Egypt and Qatar. Now, even as the fighting in Gaza intensifies, a major development has raised the specter of a possible escalation of the conflict in the region. Iran and several of its armed proxies have vowed to retaliate against Israel, following the alleged assassination of a senior Islamic Revolution Guards Corps commander in Syria. IRGC commander Sayyid Razi Musavi was actually killed on Monday in an Israeli airstrike on a Damascus suburb. While Israel has refused to comment on this issue, the IRGC has vowed to avenge his killing, saying the Israeli regime would undoubtedly pay the price for this crime. The Iranian foreign minister has warned Israel of repercussions, saying Tel Aviv should expect a tough countdown. In a separate statement, the Iranian foreign ministry spokesperson said Iran reserves the right to take necessary measures and respond to this killing at the right time and in the right place. Israel has for years targeted what it calls Iran-linked positions in Syria, where the IRGC, an elite wing of the Iranian military, has a significant presence. The Iranian state media described Musavi as one of the most experienced advisors of the Quds Force, the foreign arm of the IRGC. Next week, Iran will mark the 4th anniversary of Qasem Soleimani's assassination by US forces, and Musavi, who was killed on Monday, was the most senior Quds Force general killed since Soleimani's killing. Iran's warnings of retaliation were echoed by Iran-backed Lebanese militant group Hezbollah and the Iran-linked Al-Nujaba resistance movement in Iraq. Meanwhile, Israel's finance ministry informed the Knesset on Monday that the country's war with Hamas in Gaza will likely cost it at least another $14 billion in 2024 and result in a near tripling of its budget deficit, projecting that fighting in Gaza will last at least through February.
And to you, IDF fighters and grieving families and hostages' relatives, I say from this stage as well, we are not stopping and will not stop until victory, because we have no other country and we have no other way. I want to tell you, lawmakers and their families, we wouldn't have succeeded up until now to release more than 100 hostages without military pressure. All the pressures we apply, political, intelligence, many other efforts, would not have succeeded without the military pressure. And we won't succeed at releasing all the hostages without military pressure. Military pressure, operational pressure, political pressure. And that is why there is one thing that we will not do. We will not stop fighting. We are in a multi-front war and are coming under attack from 7 different theaters: Gaza, Lebanon, Syria, Judea, and Samaria, Iraq, Yemen, and Iran. We've already responded and taken action in 6 of these theaters. And I say here in the most explicit way, anyone who acts against us is a potential target. There is no immunity for anyone.
We're in Al-Aqsa hospital where I just left the resuscitation room where a 9-year-old boy named Ahmed was being treated basically with sedation to ease his suffering as he dies. He was crossing the street in front of the shelter where his family is staying when the building beside him blew up. He was hit by shrapnel, by rubble. His brain matter was exposed. He was taken to a hospital close to where he lived in Nusrat, and they transferred him here to Al-Aqsa. But there's nothing anybody can do for him. Like so many cases here, there isn't capacity to manage complex neurological cases, complex trauma cases. The operating theaters are working 24 hours a day. The emergency room is far, far beyond its basic capacity. You're seeing kids like Ahmed dying unnecessarily because of bombing and fighting, and because the health system doesn't have the capacity to even come close to managing these kinds of complex cases among the hundreds and the thousands of cases that come through these doors in front of me every day.
All right, joining me on Global Lens tonight is Lev Aaron, Israeli columnist and journalist. Great to have you back, Lev. We're also joined by Lieutenant General Rakesh Sharma, defense and geopolitical expert here in India, joining us from New Delhi. And completing the panel tonight is Irina Sukuman, national security and geopolitical analyst, joining us live from New York. I need to take a quick break here on the show, but don't go anywhere. We will go across to our panel of experts in just a moment.
जब हम करेंगे तो पता लग ही जाएगा सलमान खान का करेंगे मारेंगे या जोधपुर में मारेंगे तो पता लग जाएगा
This is someone who is sitting inside our jails and is still very obviously and openly running and possibly the largest organized criminal operation in the country.
Student organization of Punjab University में सोपूगा acting president type भी रहा है.
He was a troublemaker, getting into fights with people, not coming to the class.
As on date, it appears that Lawrence gang is the most important, the prominent gang. Gangs here in Punjab, they are intimidated.
Today, he's India's most dangerous gangster, and India's prisons are apparently no bar to how Bishnoi runs India's largest criminal empire.
News is now content. Just stream it. Download the world's first news OTT, News9 Plus, ahead of the curve.
All right. Let me go straight across to Lev Aaron, who joins us from Israel tonight. Lev, welcome back to Global Lens. Lots to talk about here. Of course, the Prime Minister of Israel saying yet again that we are going to press ahead with this war. He visited the Israeli troops in Gaza on Monday. And at the same time, we're talking about how Egypt has proposed a 3-phase plan, not just to get the hostages back, but to actually end the war. I wonder what your thoughts on that are, whether there are likely to be any takers. And there's been another major development, which is that a top Iranian commander has allegedly been assassinated by Israel. At least that's what Iran is saying, and they have vowed revenge and payback, clearly threatening Israel. What are we to make of this?
First, I want to apologize that I cannot be here all the time, so please forgive me. Second thing, I think we should assume that Israel was the force behind, and that Iran is right, that it is something that Israel has done, and Israel has done what it's done because we wanted to tell Iran, look, now we are all playing with fire. If Hezbollah starts a war, you're also part of the war. So this is first about Iran, and in this case, I think Iran is right. Probably it is Israel, even if Israel did not deny that it is like our job. So I think we could all guess it is Israeli job. The second thing, Israel does not like the Egyptian plan. On the other hand, Israel doesn't want to be the first one to say we refuse to take it seriously. So I think we will have to see how Israel says no, but without saying no. So, and the third thing is that, of course, Netanyahu has no other choice but to defeat Hamas. This is because it is a consensus among the Israeli public, and also because of our desi inside politics. We have to win the Hamas. This is the only thing that all the Israelis agree about.
Okay, since I know that you have to leave in a few minutes, Lev, I need to ask you this question. It's interesting. You're saying yes, it is very probably Israel that has carried out the assassination of Musavi, the senior-most IRGC commander since Qasem Soleimani was killed by US forces. Now, you're saying this is an important message Israel is sending out to Iran, a country that it sees as the architect of the 7th October terror attacks, saying, do not play with fire. We are willing to go to any length to protect ourselves and our interests. But let's not ignore what Iran has already said. They've issued a clear warning, or shall I say a threat to Israel, saying you will have to pay for this. Everyone from the Iranian president to the foreign minister and the IRGC have said Israel will have to pay for this, and we will take revenge at a time and place of our choosing. So my question is, even as Israel seeks to send out this message to Iran, are you not seriously risking an escalation of this conflict, something that has been feared, discussed, debated and dissected by experts for weeks now?
So if we all assume that Israel is behind the assassination, I guess that Israel took the risk. And as far as Israel is concerned, even if Iran says that a revenge will be there, a vendetta will be there, still Israel believes that Iran does not want a war right now, when also Yemen and Americans and also many NATO states are part of the war. So I think that even if Iran
and I rarely interrupt you on this show, but isn't it true that Israel also thought that Hamas was in no mood for a war, and then 7th October happened?
I think it is a fair question, but I don't think that even now Israel thinks that Iran is the mastermind behind what Hamas did. Because the Hezbollah leader said quite clearly, it was crystal clear, that they were all surprised. So I don't think that Israel thinks that Iran is behind the 7th of October. They financed Hamas, of course. And maybe again we are wrong, like we were wrong on October 7th. But right now, Israel believes that that Iran will be more careful, and also Hezbollah, its proxy, because nobody wants a real war on the northern border.
Okay, I beg to differ though, Lev, because I have done countless shows in the last 3 months with a multitude of Israeli guests, including individuals who represent Prime Minister Netanyahu and his government. They have come on my show and said on record, Iran is the architect of 7th October. So I'm not sure I can agree with you there. But I thank you. Okay, go ahead.
Let me put it, I'm sure that Iran is the mastermind of the capabilities of Hamas, but I'm not sure that Iran knew about the 7th of October specifically. That's what I meant.
Okay, but like I said, you know, many Israelis I have spoken to, including representatives of the Netanyahu government, seem to have actually struck a very different note from you as far as the role of Iran in all of this is concerned. But I know that you have to leave early tonight. So on that note, Lev Aaron, thank you very much for joining us on Global Lens. I certainly look forward to having you back. Always a pleasure talking to you. I would request Lieutenant General Rakesh Sharma and Irina Sukuman to stay back with us. Time for us to take another quick break here on the show. We'll be back very quickly.
Currently, the industry is facing a lot of challenges as far as demand is concerned. Basically, the US markets has slowed down because of high inflation.
So obviously, you know, diamonds being a dream product, something which doesn't have a utility value or is seen as a luxury. So that obviously goes off your shopping list. That's the first item that will go off your shopping list, especially in recessionary trends.
The lab-grown diamonds are not mined, and they do away with the entire mining. So they save up on all the environmental damage that is associated with mining, and of course, you know, the mining cost, which is why they're even more affordable.
People that is impacted by all these recessions are the artisans, are the people who work in this industry, right? But I think lab-grown diamond has allowed them to actually use their skills in the same product.
This and more, streaming on world's first news OTT, News9 Plus. Download now.
वर्ष 2070 तक भारत नेट जीरो का लक्ष्य हासिल करेगा.
There is certainly a wall of capital coming into the clean tech, climate tech space, not just in India but across the world.
This and more, streaming on world's first news OTT, News9 Plus. Download now.
It was my 14th birthday.
On birthday, daughter waits
Home missing father.
He was carrying a cake for his daughter.
49-year-old Birmingham-based
Indian diplomat vanishes.
He was grabbed and bundled into a car by 4 assailants.
KLA claims responsibility, demands Kashmiri separatists.
Maqbool Bhatt's release.
Goli maro, aur phek do.
And within 3 days, they shot him dead.
Abducted diplomat.
Found murdered in Leicestershire.
I said, who ordered to kill him? To me, he said, yes, I ordered it.
And he never came home.
Stop searching. Start streaming. Download the world's first news OTT, News9 Plus, ahead of the curve.
Welcome back. We are discussing how the Israel-Hamas war is poised. Let me go across at this point to our guests, Lieutenant General Rakesh Sharma and Irina Sukuman. My apologies for keeping you waiting because we had some breaking news at the start of the show. This incident near the embassy of Israel in New Delhi. Lieutenant General Rakesh Sharma, let me come to you, sir. Let's begin with what I believe has been a major development in the last 24 hours, apart from the fact that, of course, the Hamas-controlled health ministry in Gaza has claimed that 250 people have been killed in an Israeli airstrike in the last 24 hours alone. The assassination of a very senior IRGC commander. We are given to understand that he was actually the senior most in the Quds force since the killing of Soleimani by the US forces. Now, we heard our Israeli guests say it is very probably Israel that has done it because it wanted to send out a message to Iran saying do not play with fire. But at the same time, Iran has already issued a counter threat saying you're going to pay for this. We will choose the place and the time of our revenge. So my question to you is simply this. For weeks now, we've discussed and debated on this show whether there's a possibility of this conflict escalating beyond Gaza. Now, with Israel and Iran tangling with each other in this fashion, what is your assessment? How serious is that danger in your view?
Thank you, Neha. Thank you for inviting me. The fact is, not only this issue, I think 3-4 issues if you add together, I think the escalation seems to be very much on the cards. One is, of course, as you rightly pointed out, is the strike in outskirts of Damascus where Brigadier General Musawi was killed, who was Soleimani's right-hand man, of course, an IRGC representative. So that's one major thing. And I think, there should be no doubt that this is on part of the Israeli armed forces who have done this. That's one. Second, the major issue also is that the Americans have struck Hezbollah camps inside Iraq. Now that's an expansion of the conflict across to Iraq, where there was some kind of a strike against one of these Erbil base of Americans in the course of yesterday on Christmas Day, on Monday, yesterday. And thereafter, the Americans have struck Hezbollah camps inside Iraq, also affiliate of Hezbollah. That's the second thing. The third is on the Red Sea. Red Sea is kind of literally boiling now. There was one of these ships which is called MV Sai Baba. Of course, now referring to India, it's not an Indian ship. But then Sai Baba was attacked by a drone. And we have a drone strike which is coming off the Gujarat coast, 300 nautical miles from the Gujarat coast. Is it not expansion? I think if you add all these things together, it's coming to a brink of expansion where it should be to curb it, to control it, instead of allowing it to spread the way it is spreading now.
I think you're quite right, sir. Thanks for pointing out those very, very important developments that have taken place, whether it is US striking targets in Iraq and Syria, whether it is Israel going after an IRGC commander near Damascus, the fact that, of course, the death toll in Gaza keeps rising, and the fact that the Houthi rebels are making it impossible for shipping activities to actually continue in the Red Sea. So much so that, given all the threats and given that there was a drone attack on an Indian merchant vessel in the Arabian Sea on Saturday, India too has deployed 3 warships in the Arabian Sea in light of all these developments. Therefore, Irina Sukuman, let me ask you this. Lieutenant General Rakesh Sharma, of course, makes a valid point. He says, if anybody still wants to believe that this war is not widening or escalating, they are in denial. It's already underway. Your thoughts on the seriousness of all these developments, and especially the threat that Iran is now issuing to Israel in the aftermath of the assassination of a senior IRGC commander, allegedly by Israel.
Well, I'm going to start, and thank you once again for inviting me, by saying that this was always meant to be an escalated war. It was always supposed to be a multi-front war. There's been reports about Israel taking down infrastructure in the West Bank over the summer and the months leading up to October 7th, that would have produced a similar attack to what happened on October 7th from Gaza by Hamas. And of course, Hezbollah has been ratcheting up its pressure on the northern border, not so much as to invite a full-scale war, but significant enough that at any other time, except for when Israel is fully engaged in Gaza, it would have normally invited a full-scale war. That's the level of attacks we are seeing by Hezbollah today. I think it's also improbable to say that Iran had no knowledge of these different groups working together to coordinate this level of attack. On October 7th, it wasn't just Hamas that was present in Israel, but 5 terrorist organizations, which have otherwise have had rivalry tensions among them, but have been united by Iran specifically to attack Israel. We also know from Wall Street Journal reporting that there have been Hamas and Palestinian Islamic Jihad fighters training a month before the attacks in Iran, which indicates that there was a level of knowledge of an upcoming event. Whether Iran knew every single detail of that event or not is not relevant. They knew enough that they were coordinating that they clearly had a very significant role in the coordination of whatever it was, and not mere general backing of Hamas. So when Mousavi was killed, he certainly wasn't just it was more than just some symbolic gesture. Mousavi is a serious threat to the region. He's a number 2 man behind Qasem Soleimani. He is at the heart of Iran's liaison with all these different terrorist groups, and he's the mastermind of many different operations by Iran's proxies in the region. So he's was very much an active problem, not only to Israel, but to the regional security. And the escalation we are seeing by the Houthis, not only against Israeli ships, which are also at this point in time mostly avoiding the area, they're going through the Cape route to avoid getting attacked, but to the international commercial activity in the region. This is also would not be possible without Iran's direct order, which is directly answerable to Iran. Their Houthi leadership has been traveling back and forth between Iran for the last many years, getting direct orders. Iran at one point had an ambassador directly in Sana'a, and they're not able to coordinate this kind of activity without direct orders from Iran and without the sophisticated weapons and training provided by Iran.
Okay. Lieutenant General Rakesh Sharma, let me come back to you this point. I think it is well established that the conflict is escalating. We've heard what Netanyahu has said after returning from Gaza just yesterday. We're talking about, everything that's happening around, Israel and Gaza. But let's for a moment talk about Egypt's peace proposal. Now, just for the benefit of the viewers, I want to quickly recap what this proposed plan suggests. It's going to unfold, if at all it's accepted, it's going to unfold in 3 phases. The first phase would involve Israel pausing its military operations for 1 to 2 weeks and Hamas releasing 40 hostages, including women and the elderly. Remember, they still hold 129 in captivity. The second phase includes an agreement of the exchange of bodies of Hamas operatives held by Israel for the bodies of Israeli hostages held by Hamas. And the third phase of the plan would include an all-for-all deal, meaning Israel would return 6,000 Palestinian prisoners in its jails for the remaining Israeli hostages, including soldiers who are currently in Hamas captivity. And this third and final phase of the plan would also include the end of the war in Gaza, with Israel pulling out from the Gaza Strip, and the establishment of a technocratic government in Gaza, which will not be affiliated with Hamas, but will get the support of the United States, Egypt, and Qatar. Now, Lieutenant General Sharma, on paper, you and I might think this is a perfectly reasonable and viable plan. But the question is, are there going to be any takers for it? I mean, like I said, you know, we've heard what Prime Minister Netanyahu said just yesterday after returning from Gaza. We are not going to stop. This war is not going to end. We don't care what the world thinks. We are only going to intensify our operations. So my question to you is, do you believe that countries like the United States can indeed put enough pressure on the two sides to accept some sort of a peace formula?
Neha, in addition to what you have mentioned, there's one more item which the Egyptian plan said, and that's they have proposed elections in Hamas, and they have offered assurances to Hamas that its members will not be prosecuted. And the second point here is that the PIJ and Hamas have been negotiating with Egypt separately as two separate entities. Though they may have undertaken the 7th of October operations together, their discussions with the intermediaries of Egypt are separate, which means that they have actually not reconciled issues between themselves. So the PIJ and Hamas are two separate entities, and that makes it that acceptance of any plan is not very likely. But I'd also like to add the second point here. You mentioned about the statement given by Prime Minister Netanyahu to the Likud party, but there is an important article that he's penned down recently in Wall Street Journal in the op-ed, and he gave out 3 points in which he says how he would think the peace will come out in Gaza, and this is in writing. You know, this is actually available on the media, where he says he will destroy Hamas, which is military capabilities, political rule to end. Second is demilitarize Gaza. And the third important point is that he wants to de-radicalize the whole of Palestinian society. What does this imply? De-radicalize West Bank, East Jerusalem, which is the Palestinian quarter, is already having problems of being the accommodation being vacated and Palestinians being pushed out of East Jerusalem. So de-radicalize West Bank, de-radicalize Hamas, the entire Gaza Strip. Also de-radicalize the 200,000 Arabs which are staying inside Israel as Israeli citizens. How do you do a de-radicalization of the complete society? And you know, when he says this, he says Gaza will not be allowed as a base, and there will be a temporary security zone on the perimeter, which means that as it is, Gaza Strip is so narrow, more than the narrow Gaza Strip, a temporary perimeter of security will come out in this area. So where would the 2.3 million people go? So that's an important issue here. And I'll add the third point. See, Hamas has not been pulling along well with the Egyptian government from 2014. Till 2014, there was a different Egyptian government, and the tunnels were allowed inside Sinai, and you know there was a whole lot of trade going on between Hamas and Egypt. When this present government came up in 2014, they have closed all tunnels in this area, and you know last 5 to 6 years, the access that Hamas had to Egypt had gone away. So relations between Egypt and Hamas have been actually at a tail end now since 2014 with the present government. The previous government was a brotherhood government, Muslim Brotherhood, and Hamas is an offshoot of Muslim Brotherhood. So then there are serious differences out here between the present Egyptian government and the present Palestinian people of staying in Gaza. So any which way, whether you see the proposals of President Netanyahu or proposals of Egypt, are not non-starters the way it stands out.
You've made some very important points, and let's not forget Al-Sisi, the president of Egypt, has just been re-elected with an overwhelming majority for yet another term. And you're quite right, you know, when Prime Minister Netanyahu says we're going to de-radicalize the entire Palestinian population, how are you going to do that? Many have asked, Hamas is not just a terror organization, it's also an idea and ideology. Can you really completely root out an idea or an ideology? And at the same time, you know, there are many, including the French president, who've asked a very pertinent question. How does Israel hope to secure its citizens and achieve lasting peace and security after having killed so many Palestinians and after having triggered so much anger, outrage and resentment in the Arab world, in the countries that Israel is surrounded by, how does Israel realistically hope to achieve lasting peace? So let me take this to Irina Sukuman. Irina Sukuman, you want to respond to what the Lieutenant General has said. He makes some very valid points that, you know, there are many who believe that Israel has set itself some very unrealistic targets, talking about de-radicalizing the entire Palestinian population, for instance. And also, what are your thoughts on this Egyptian peace proposal? The Lieutenant General seems to think it's a non-starter.
Yes, I agree with him, and I'll get to the point about de-radicalization. But first, Hamas and Palestinian Islamic Jihad already rejected this plan. And by the way, the most unrealistic point of the plan was a joint PA-Hamas governance of Gaza, because this is not a plan that would work. The US does not want Hamas involved. Israel has signaled potential openness to PA rule, but only if it's completely de-radicalized and restructured, and Mahmoud Abbas doesn't seem to be going anywhere anytime soon, and neither are his immediate echelons of power. And quite frankly, I'm not really sure how any of that would work, given the fact that we are still in the middle of the war and Hamas is not interested in giving up at all. They've made Yahya Sinwar made that point very clear. But there is another difficulty from the other side, which is the fact that why the war is going for as long as it's going. Why is Israel having such difficulty meeting immediate military goals, much less political goals? And again, I'll get to that point. The reason is the IDF has to literally go door to door in Gaza, because literally every residential building has weapons stored in it, has tunnels under it, and has launch sites in immediate proximity, which means that either Hamas has a much greater control of the infrastructure than anyone that is being written about, or the civilians are much more cooperative with Hamas than anyone cares to admit. And Israel has, in fact, listened to the direction from the White House. It has restructured its operations to focus on the Hamas leadership, but it has led to several terrible incidents over the weekend, which killed 14 soldiers in several security incidents. We are seeing incredible immediate security challenges that are not being met by any strategic suggestions from outside parties, which means that meeting even the military goals are going to be very difficult. And Israel has also been sending out mixed signals on what those military goals are, because previously it had said that the entire military leadership of Hamas has to be destroyed. Now, after the Egypt meeting, it has signaled that it might be open to exiling Hamas leadership if in return for the return of the rest of the hostages. And I'm not sure that the Israeli society would be okay with that. So we are having conflicting responses from Israel. When it comes to de-radicalization, I agree, it is a very difficult task, because every institution, not only in Gaza but outside Gaza, has been geared towards perpetuation of extremist ideas, and the international community has not been really making a point to emphasize de-radicalization. There's been some agreement on the military goals, but not on the larger ideological goals.
But you see, right now, the international community is, repeatedly calling for a ceasefire, but Israel is certainly not paying attention to that sentiment either. And of course, you're right in saying that it's a terrible development that 15, Israeli soldiers were killed over the weekend, but it's equally terrible that 250 Palestinians had to die in just the last 24 hours in Gaza. Therefore, let's not forget that a very heavy price is being paid by innocent civilians for this war that has now gone on for well over 11 weeks. At last count, over 20,000 Palestinians were killed in Gaza, and the death toll keeps rising. On that note, Lieutenant General Rakesh Sharma, Irina Sukuman, thank you so much for joining me on Global Lens tonight. All right, let's now turn our focus from the Israel-Hamas war to a development that is, in a sense, linked to the war. The Indian Navy has deployed 3 of its warships in the Arabian Sea following a drone attack on a merchant vessel. The Navy's explosive ordnance disposal team carried out a detailed inspection of merchant vessel MV Kem Pluto on its arrival at the Mumbai harbour 2 days after the ship was hit by a drone off India's west coast in the Arabian Sea when it was on its way to the New Mangalore port. In view of a spate of attacks on commercial vessels in the Arabian Sea, the Navy has deployed P-8I long-range patrol aircraft for surveillance and warships INS Mormugao, INS Kochi and INS Kolkata in the region to maintain a deterrent presence. Saturday's drone attack on Liberian-flagged MV Kem Pluto came amid increasing concerns over various commercial vessels being targeted by Iran-backed Houthi rebels in the Red Sea and the Gulf of Aden amid the Israel-Hamas conflict. Now, this is significant. A Pentagon spokesperson said on Sunday that MV Kem Pluto was hit by a one-way attack drone fired from Iran. It was the first time the Pentagon openly accused Iran of directly targeting ships since the beginning of Israel's war on Hamas, which is backed by Tehran. Iran has denied this allegation by the US. The Indian Navy spokesperson said a joint investigation by various agencies has commenced following completion of the analysis of this vessel by the explosive ordnance team. MV Kem Pluto, with 21 crew members carrying crude oil to the New Mangalore port from Al Jubel port in Saudi Arabia, was struck about 217 nautical miles from Porbandar on Saturday. No one was injured in the incident. A Gabon-flagged commercial crude oil tanker with 25 Indian crew members also came under a drone attack in the southern Red Sea on Saturday, but no one was injured in that incident either. All right, from the Israel-Hamas war, let's now turn our attention to the Russia-Ukraine war, which has gone on for close to 2 years now. Ukraine today claimed it had carried out an airstrike in Crimea that destroyed a Russian Navy tank landing ship in what would be, if confirmed, the third instance of major losses of Russian military hardware in less than a week. In fact, we have an update for you. Russia has confirmed the destruction of this particular warship. Meanwhile, in a post on Telegram, Ukrainian Air Force Commander Mykola Oleshchuk thanked personnel involved in the destruction of the Novocherkassk large landing ship while it was in the port of Feodosia in Crimea, the Ukrainian peninsula that was annexed by Russia in 2014. Now, videos posted on social media show large explosions in the Feodosia port. The Russian Defense Ministry said the Novocherkassk had been damaged in a Ukrainian attack. The Russia-appointed head of Crimea, Sergei Aksyonov, acknowledged that there had been an enemy attack in Feodosia area and that one person was killed and 2 others injured in the Ukrainian strikes. Now it seems Russia has acknowledged this incident as well. Now, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky congratulated his military for striking the Russian warship. He said, and I quote, "I'm grateful to our Air Force for the spectacular replenishment of the Russian Black Sea submarine fleet with another vessel. There will be no peaceful place for the occupiers in Ukraine." Now, according to a US military fact sheet, Novocherkassk, the 369-foot vessel, displaces about 3,450 tons, carries a crew of around 87 with a capacity for 237 troops. It's not known yet how many personnel may have been aboard in this Ukrainian attack. The ship is designed for beach landings with the bow and stern doors and the ability to accommodate up to 25 armored personnel on its vehicle deck. The Ukrainian Air Force commander, Mykola Oleshchuk, said the Novocherkassk has followed the Moskva, the guided missile cruiser that was the flagship of Russia's Black Sea fleet before it sank in April 2022 after being struck by Ukrainian missiles. Ukraine also claimed in September this year that the Novocherkassk sister ship, the Minsk, had been destroyed in an attack on the Sevastopol naval base in Crimea. Now, if the destruction of the Novocherkassk is confirmed, and now it seems it is. It has been by Russia in just the last few minutes. Then it seems it could be or is the third instance in the past week of the Russian military suffering losses of important hardware in combat, according to Ukrainian claims. On Christmas Eve, the Ukrainian Air Force said it had destroyed an Su-24 fighter jet in the eastern Donetsk region and an Su-30SM fighter jet over the Black Sea. On Friday, Zelensky said the country's forces had downed 3 Russian Su-34 warplanes.
Pilots of tactical air forces delivered a strike. The operation was planned by the armed forces and other security forces. Footage that is on air now is impressive indeed. A warship was destroyed, most likely a warship with a set of ammunition, powerful one. If someone has information about the type of ammunition, it will be announced later. A huge work has been done. A big assault carrier was destroyed, and it became a part of a fleet to which Moscow missile cruiser belongs.
All right, and as we wrap up this edition of Global Lens tonight, let's get you some news from our neighborhood, Pakistan, which is gearing up for its next general election. In a first, a Hindu woman in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa's Buner district has filed her nomination papers for a general seat in the upcoming polls in Pakistan. General elections are scheduled to be held in that country on the 8th of February next year to elect members of the 16th National Assembly. Savera Prakash has officially submitted nomination papers for the general seat of PK25, that's Khyber Pakhtunkhwa in the Buner district. A member of the Hindu community, Prakash is optimistic about contesting the elections on a Pakistan People's Party ticket, following in the footsteps of her father Om Prakash, a recently retired doctor and a dedicated member of the PPP for the last 35 years. Prakash is the first woman from Buner in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa to submit nomination papers for these elections on a general seat. A 2022 graduate of Abbottabad International Medical College, Prakash serves as the General Secretary of the PPP's Women's Wing in Buner. Expressing her commitment to the welfare of the community, she has highlighted her desire to work for the betterment of women, ensuring a safe environment and advocating for their rights. Now, recent amendments by the Election Commission of Pakistan mandate a 5% inclusion of women candidates in general seats. All right, that's all the time we have on Global Lens tonight. Thanks so much for watching, and do join us at the same time tomorrow. Goodbye for now.
जब हम करेंगे तो पता लग ही जाएगा। सलमान खान का करेंगे, मारेंगे या जोधपुर में मारेंगे तो पता लग जाएगा।
This is someone who is sitting inside our jails and is still very obviously and openly running and possibly the largest organized criminal operation in the country.
Student organization of Punjab University में सोपू का acting president type भी रहा है.
He was a troublemaker, getting into fights with people, not coming to the class.
As on date, it appears that Lawrence gang is the most important, the prominent gang. Gangs here in Punjab, they are intimidated.
Today he is India's most dangerous gangster, and India's prisons are apparently no bar to how Bishnoi runs India's largest criminal empire.
News is now content. Just stream it. Download the world's first news OTT, News9 Plus, ahead of the curve.
The scale of the attack was something that we were surprised at. David Hadley was a double agent. The Americans did not want him to be fully exposed, so all that he probably shared with the Americans was not shared with us in terms of intelligence. If we had that, I'm sure that we would have been able to deal with the situation far better.
This and more streaming on world's first news OTT, News9 Plus. Download now.
वर्ष 2070 तक भारत नेट जीरो का लक्ष्य हासिल करेगा।
There is certainly a wall of capital coming into the clean tech, climate tech space, not just in India but across the world.
This and more, streaming on world's first news OTT, News9 Plus. Download now.
Welcome to the News9 Plus show on the world's first news and current affairs OTT platform, News9 Plus. Here are the top 9 headlines today. The CISF is interrogating Indian passengers deported from France. A chartered plane headed to Nicaragua was grounded in France at Vatry Airport over human trafficking concerns and sent back to India. The aircraft with 276 passengers on board landed at Mumbai's Chhatrapati Shivaji International Airport. An oil tanker MV Chem Pluto has reached Mumbai. The ship, with a crew of 21 Indians and a Vietnamese national, was on its way to New Mangalore from Saudi Arabia when it was attacked on Saturday, 200 nautical miles southwest of Verawal, Gujarat, leading to an explosion and fire. There were no casualties. 4 days after a militant ambush on army vehicles that killed 4 soldiers in Poonch, Army Chief General Manoj Pandey reviewed the security situation in the sector on Monday. He asked commanders on the ground to conduct operations in the most professional manner. The new COVID-19 spike may hurt children. Pediatricians are stressing the need for parents and schools to prioritize prevention for children. Although the symptoms in children may not be alarming, the post-infection phase can pose potential complications. Russia confirms damage to a warship in the Black Sea. The large landing ship Novocherkassk was hit in the Black Sea during an attack by Ukraine. Earlier, the head of the Ukrainian Air Force said their warplanes had destroyed the ship using guided missiles. The strike took place in the port of Feodosia in Russia-occupied Crimea. Back from a visit to Gaza, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said the war in Gaza will be a long fight and is far from ending. The US carried out a counter-strike on Iran-backed forces in Iraq after a drone attack by militants left 1 US service member in critical condition and wounded 2 other US personnel. Lashkar-e-Taiba founder and 2611 mastermind Hafiz Saeed's political party is fielding candidates in the upcoming Pakistan elections. Saeed has been in jail since 2019 after being convicted in multiple terror finance cases, but that has not stopped him from fielding candidates for most of the national and provincial assembly constituencies across Pakistan for the February 8th general elections. British pop group Wham's song Last Christmas has reached the top spot on the UK Christmas chart almost 40 years after its release. BBC Radio named the song by Wham, formed by George Michael and Andrew Ridgeley, as the top song on the official chart's Christmas list. 2022 began with Russia's invasion of Ukraine. 2023 saw a second conflict zone when Israel attacked Gaza. And in the last few weeks, we've seen a third conflict zone open up. The Yemen-based Houthis have fired over 100 missiles and drones at merchant ships in the Red Sea. But on the 24th of December, the merchant vessel Chem Pluto was hit by a suicide drone just 400 kilometers off India's coast. The tanker was carrying crude oil from eastern Saudi Arabia to Mangalore. Are India's oil lifelines safe? And joining me to discuss this is defense expert Captain D.K. Sharma, shipping expert Captain Naveen Singhal, and my colleague Aditya Raj Kaul. Captain Sharma, I want to ask you, you've had a ringside view of naval planning as Navy spokesperson for several years. Tell us the significance of this attack. We were looking at the photographs just before the show began. It looks like a neat missile hit, except that it seems to have come from a suicide drone. The US is saying it's an Iranian drone, but give us your observations on this attack. What's the significance? What's the message from this strike?
Thanks, Sandeep. Thanks for calling me. Let's get the perspective clear first. You are saying that India's 90% of the trade and 80% of our energy needs are flowing in and out of the Persian Gulf or the Gulf of Aden, Red Sea, and then through the Suez towards the Mediterranean, Europe, North America, South America, and the likes. Now, this incident has happened on a crude tanker, Chem Pluto, around 200 nautical miles southwest of Veravel, which is absolutely mid-sea, middle of Arabian Sea. Now, how did it happen? And as per the photographs, as you're mentioning, it's a very clean hit. So whether it was a missile or what kind of vector it is, whether it is a drone, armed drone, missile, that the explosive ordnance disposal teams, which the Indian Navy had deputed, and they are doing their job, and all other stakeholders are also there. So they will find out and investigate, and then we'll come to a decision. But yes, it is a very alarming thing which has happened. And Sandeep, as you know it, the amount of traffic, the sea lanes of communications which are carrying from Suez to the Southeast Asian nations, including India, is 12% of the global trade. And I'm not mentioning about the energy needs which are coming out from the Persian Gulf. It's a huge traffic which is likely to get disrupted should activities of these kind start repeating themselves. As you have already told, so many attacks have happened inside the Gulf of Aden or the Red Sea side, but now it is coming out, which means that nobody is safe anywhere. Operation Prosperity Guardian, which is being held under the flag of US, is with 20 countries inside that place, which is restricted waters, and the attacks are coming from Yemen side, which means it's a land-based attack which is coming out to sea. But this is a new angle. You see, getting a drone from nowhere, I mean, say, how long will a merchant ship be, keeping a watch? And on which side? It's a 360-degree thing, and a drone can be, if it is coming, it can be programmed, and it's low flying, it is very low speed. Yeah. So it's a very difficult proposition to start with. But yes, now since we and the US Navy work in so much of tandem that now probably they have given us the area of Indo-Pacific. That means the ships, when they exit the Gulf of Aden, that is where India has positioned 3 destroyers, state-of-the-art destroyers. They have a great capability of anti-air defense, and they can, take on the threat. But the threat itself is so humongous that we will need many more assets. Surveillance has to be intensified, and we will have to probably, have air assets up, ships down below, and it's a 24/7 business. Sandeep, you know it. It's not an easy thing.
It's not an easy thing.
For
indeed.
how long?
Yeah, and Aditya, I want to bring you in on this. The Americans are saying that it was a suspected Iranian drone strike. What would Iran gain by striking at an Indian ship, especially one that's carrying oil for us?
Well, it's complicated to actually come to a conclusion right now that who really is behind this. As you rightly pointed out, the Americans have clearly gone out and said that the Iranians are after that, and the Iranians have come out that there's nothing could be far from true, and there is some kind of a political message that the American statement really suggests. That's what the Iranian spokesperson has said. We've also just about an hour ago had the Indian Defence Minister come out very strongly, and the Indian Defence Minister has said that we will actually trace and locate the perpetrators and the masterminds of this drone attack from the bottom of the sea, and we'll drag them up. So that it's a strong statement.
That's a strong statement.
And it's also a kind of, as you said, it's a third conflict area that's developing. It's also a new kind of terrorism that is emanating perhaps in the oceans and the seas, where we haven't seen that kind of provocation for years together. So I think it's too early to say as of now, but yes, any side could be responsible for it. It could be Iranians, it could be some rebels, or it could be Pakistanis or some other through somebody else.
Taking advantage of this confusion.
Taking advantage of the situation.
And Captain Singhal, I want to bring you in on this. What is the mood in the shipping community right now? I mean, did you ever anticipate the fact that this Israel-Gaza conflict could kind of spill over into the maritime domain in the way that it has?
Thanks a lot for your concern on the merchant shipping, and thanks for bringing me in here. So the mood on the merchant shipping is certainly not good. The merchant shipping is already, as you rightly said, the Ukraine-Russian war, and prior to that we have the Somalia, which went on for almost about 8-9 years. I mean, it's not that there is a stop, but the mood on the shipping has certainly not. But then the merchant ships were sort of prepared, for these attacks which is coming on the ships, but not the aerial attacks. I mean, boarding of ships and things like that. They had armed guards, but something like this is totally new to the shipping, and ships are certainly not prepared, and they don't have the mechanism to detect these drones, because these drones, in any case, even if they detect these drones, there's nothing they can do about it, because they're like sitting ducks. So, and the mood in the shipping industry basically comprises of, the three key players: the shippers, the ship owners, and the seafarers.
Right.
So the shippers, as you know, about 5,000 container ships. Just to give you a sort of an idea on the container side, about 50% of the fleet, which comprises of, the big ones, are the MSC, the CMS, CGM, Evergreen, OOCL, the NYK, MOL, Hapag-Lloyd. They comprise almost about 50%. They have either diverted their ships, or they are in the process of rerouting their vessels, via the Cape of Good Hope.
Right.
Because they don't see that their ships will be protected, or their cargo, and above all, the crew. So there's also a problem that they're going to be paying, and if the ships go through this area, they'll be paying almost about something like 2 or 3 times on the insurance. That's the additional war risk premium that they have to pay. So the owners and shippers are certainly, the charterers are under pressure. And just recently, I think a couple of days back, Malaysia has also banned ships, Israeli flagships calling their ports, and possibly ships carrying Israeli cargo as well. As far as the seafarers are concerned, yes, certainly, they are not prepared for this type of aerial attacks. And I think since it is very early, it's just been about 6-8 weeks. But there's a very good chance that in the near future, seafarers, from Philippines or from India or from China may even decline to board ships transiting such areas. So keeping that in mind, owners and ship owners have to sort of, take precautions of such as diverting their vessels, or I do not know whether, a convoy mechanism, as they had, as the navies, as the combined task force and the combined maritime forces, in the Gulf of Aden area during the Somalia piracy, when they got active out there, whether they will be able to do anything of that sort right now. So it's a bit too early at the moment, but the mood of the shipping industry is certainly not so good.
Right, yeah. And Captain Sharma, protecting the sea lanes of communication is a very important task of the Indian Navy, as it is with all other navies across the world. Now, given the way this conflict has played out, starting from the Gulf of Aden and now it's literally at our doorstep, what do you think that the Navy should do in the next couple of weeks and months? You think it's going to, relook at its platforms, ask for new platforms perhaps? I'm fully aware of the fact that the Navy is commissioning one of its last destroyers today. There's just one more to go, and then you're looking at a 10-year gap where there'll be no new destroyers. So tell us what this challenge of drone attacks and ballistic missile attacks on shipping mean for the Indian Navy.
Sandeep, what you're saying is correct. The Maritime Capability Perspective Plan, as you have rightly brought out, the last of the ships is now under construction, and then will be the 7 Shivalik class. But then they will have to be spread out. Now, coming down to the slocks, we will have to intensify our surveillance. The ships will have to be there deployed on the slocks, or maybe the slocks will have to be tightened, that you make a grouping. But it is too humongous a job, because as I was talking to somebody else yesterday, we took a grab. If you see a grab of the IFC IOR, 17,000 vessels.
Right.
17,000 vessels in IOR.
Yeah.
Now tell me, how do you
how do you
distinguish between
convoys?
What is carrying what?
Yes. Yeah.
What is carrying what? And now it in AIS, and the merchant ship experts are there with you.
Right.
We know the port of call from where it has started, what cargo it is carrying. But what happens if it is carrying some warlike material which are expendables? so that they will not have to be, disembarked on the destination port.
Right.
And they are being used like this.
Right.
It is becoming a new kind of a thing. As you're discussing, it's a new angle given to all this.
Right.
But let me tell you, what Indian Navy has done is now when the ships are going to exit the Gulf of Aden, or for that matter, when they are exiting the Persian Gulf, and if they are coming towards our side, the slocks are very defined.
Right.
So they will keep an eye on it and probably see that no other shipping is coming closer, or maybe if they are destined for a particular port and are doing some changes in the speed or maybe in the courses, or a strict vigil and an eye will have to be kept, and probably maybe the Sea Guardians will be used now, the P8Is will be used, the patrolling vessels, because from 200 nautical miles from Indian coast, EZ, we will have reinforced kind of surveillance by the Coast Guard.
Yeah.
But Sandeep, it's a new challenge for us.
You're right.
And as the Raksha Mantri has said that we will do whatever it costs us, and it will